Types of trauma. Now that we've looked at our responses to stress and trauma, let's look at types of trauma. Single incident trauma. Trauma can happen to us as a single major event. This is a big incident that most people will easily recognize as trauma. This could be a massacre, a house fire where everything was lost, a bombing, or a car accident. When you ask people to identify the bad thing that happened, they will likely know what you're talking about. Mama Zara's shop being burnt down as a result of the neighborhood is an example of an incident of trauma. Complex trauma. Trauma can also take place in many events over a period of time without clear beginning or end. This could be things like ongoing domestic violence or child abuse, or living in an insecure conflict environment where there are attacks on a regular basis. Cattle rustling, neglect, domestic abuse, or war. This type of trauma is often called complex trauma because it affects us in complex ways, such as affecting our deeper personality or our sense of self. The community Zahara and her family live in experiences complex types of trauma from loss of property and lives. This can be attributed to the lack of services, medical, water, electricity, education, low income, and fires that cannot be put out due to accessibility issues such as narrow paths or houses that are clustered together. Sometimes, complex trauma can be difficult to define. There may be one critical incident that stands out, but it derives from ongoing events that merge together. When you ask people to identify the bad thing that happened, they may not be able to identify the exact traumatic event. Instead, sometimes someone may just say, "Do you mean my whole life?" Developmental trauma. When trauma occurs during critical periods of our development, it can affect us differently depending on our stage of life. The pair of ACEs, which is advanced childhood experiences and advanced community experiences, can contribute to a child's development. Advanced community experiences, like the ones Zahara's community experiences, insecurity, poverty, crime, prevalence of substance abuse, sexual and domestic violence affect how children develop. Collective trauma. Collective trauma is a traumatic event or series of events that's collectively experienced by large numbers of people. This may be a specific group, a community, or wider society. War is a type of collective trauma that affects all social relationships, corrupts institutions, destroys natural resources, and drives people to accept violence as a normal part of daily life. Some forms of collective trauma are historical trauma. When collective trauma has been carried across generations, examples include slavery, the conflict between the Palestinians and the Jews, or the long-running conflict between the Pokot and the Turkana. Cultural trauma. This occurs when attempts are made to destroy part or all of a culture or people. Examples include colonialism in Africa, the Rwandese genocide, extremists in Somalia, early marriages, paying the bride price, cattle raiding, and kidnapping, and other effects. Structural trauma. We speak of structural trauma when a part of a community or society lives in unjust political, economic, or social conditions that put people in a disadvantaged position, e.g., apartheid, racism, sexism, or ageism. Vicarious or secondary trauma. Sometimes we can become negatively affected by trauma that we have not even directly experienced ourselves. When we're involved in supporting others who have experienced trauma, there can be a buildup of stress over time that can cause changes to our psychological, physical, and spiritual well-being. A key component of vicarious trauma are changes in our belief system, when one can significantly affect the way we see the world and our deepest sense of meaning and hope. Anyone who works with or supports people who have been traumatized is at risk for developing vicarious trauma.